You know her songs, A Jar of Hearts, 1,000 Years, Human. Say hello to singing superstar Christina Perry. I find it so fascinating that you were, not so long ago, a waitress in L.A., and then you write this song, and you're a superstar pretty much overnight, one hit after another. We love you. Don't we love her? She's so great. How you get from A to B in your music. But first, I want to talk about the Grammys. A couple nights ago. A lot of people after the fact said that it was a very somber affair, very political. You have Beyonce. She sang a song, or what was it? Take My Hand, Precious Lord. She said she was singing for the families of people who had lost their sons, and she had an all-male chorus, and they put up their hands in the don't shoot position, obviously referencing Ferguson. And then you had Prince, who announced Album of the Year. When he did, he said, albums, you remember those. Albums still matter like books and Black lives. Albums still matter. What was your take on the position that was taken? Because it's so interesting. Last year, it was all about gay marriage. And this year, a lot of it was about, you know, social issues regarding African Americans and the way they're treated in this country.
Well, I feel like the Grammys have always been just really classy, and I've always really liked watching the show. But I feel like there was a point where it was just about the celebrity and just about the hit song, and then I feel like it really took a good direction. I loved the Grammys this year. I even tweeted about it, it being my favorite of all the Grammys.
Why is that? Because, as I said, some people thought it was too dark.
Well, see, that's kind of my vibe. Like, I love ballads, obviously, so I loved that everyone was playing really emotional songs, so that's how they captivated me personally. But then the fact that they were touching on all these issues, it just reminded me of, like, that's why music's so powerful. Like, it took something like an award ceremony, you know, and made it really important, I felt like.
But do you feel you have an obligation as a musician to take on social issues?
I don't think it's an obligation. I think if it happens naturally, I think that's great. Because, you know, I mean, I write love songs, so I'm trying to connect to people's hearts, you know, but obviously world issues is also a really good thing if that happens. But I thought it was done really well. I thought we kind of needed it. I thought we needed this Grammys this year.
Well, I also love Sam Smith, who took home 4 Grammys. And he really talked about, rather than social issues, he talked about how he got to the point where he could really write good music. And in one of his speeches, he said, it was only until I started to be myself that the music started to flow and people started to listen. And I think that's so true of all of us. Until we find our own voice, we don't have one, really.
Yes.
And as an artist, I'm sure there are a lot of people telling you what you should be and what you should do.
All the time. That was my favorite part, for sure. I mean,
Sam?
Yeah. Sam, I love him. I love that album. I thought, you know, he just really earned all those awards. Like, I just thought it was amazing. But when he said that, I mean, I got choked up, because that's exactly right. Like, the fact he'd be so vulnerable on stage and say that, you know, really, I bet just affected especially every musician in that room. Because we have all been there. I mean, that's happened for me, especially because my story was like Cinderella, and I kind of like appeared overnight, and then all the opinions come in. But I'm like, but this thing worked the way it was, you know, like I was just
Why do you want to change me now?
Yeah, and so a lot of people happens in the beginning, and mine sort of happened in the middle when people were trying to, you know, just sort of guide me in all different directions.
Well, that's when you wrote, I'm jumping ahead because I want to talk about your first song, but you were sort of stuck in the second album that you were being forced to put out quickly.
Yeah.
And that's when you finally wrote the song Human.
Yeah.
Which is really about, I'm only human at the end of the day, never thinking that it would become a hit. You wrote it for yourself.
I did. So I wrote that song as almost like a secret, because I had written 39 songs for album 2, and that's another part of the machine of it a little bit, is like keep writing, keep writing, keep writing. And writing is so sensitive, and you know, to be creative, you can't be afraid, and in my opinion. So I remember writing Human because I was just so done. I was like, I can't do this anymore. It was a really emotional day for me. And so I wrote Human to make me feel better, like, honestly, just for me in that moment, in that room. And then I showed it to someone, and they had a feeling, and I was like, oh. I was like, okay.
That's me. Put myself out again.
This is what I do. And then I remembered that that's my thing, and so that's why I put it out as the first single. Yeah.
But that's what you've done since the very beginning, since you wrote the first song that we all know, Jar of Hearts.
Yes.
And you wrote that. Your music has always been so personal, so talk to me about that song. Where were you when you wrote it, physically and psychologically, emotionally?
So I wrote it on December 26th of 2009.
Oh, you remember the exact date?
I'm very nerdy. I remember every day. It's like my superpower. And so I was in my pajamas, and I was in my parents' house because I was home for Christmas. And I wrote the song truly because the guy that I had been dating for on and off for 6 years, it was very unhealthy. And he and I just kept doing this thing that we all do. I mean, I feel like there's always one person that we keep doing that with. And so, but we never get to know the day that we're actually over them. I feel like we fake it for a long time.
Yeah.
And then one day we just actually are okay and we're actually over this person. And so for me, that was that day. And I sat, because he said like, hey, you're home, you know, like, let's hang out.
He called you that day?
He called me and I said no, and I meant it for the first time. And so I sat down and I wrote that song about strength. Honestly, that's what it's about, that you don't get to get me back.
What came first, the lyrics or the melody?
Same time. I actually wrote it on guitar, and it was called Jar Full of Hearts, was the original title. And I just, the way I write is always at the same time. I'm just singing and playing, and then sometimes things stick, and then I go back and
Is
put
there
it together.
one line from that song that just resonates with you more than any other? Or?
I think the You Don't Get to Get Me Back is the theme of that song. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Would you mind playing a little bit of that? Wouldn't that be great? Thank you.
And who do you think you are? Running around leaving scars, collecting your jar of hearts and tearing love apart. You're gonna catch a cold from the ice inside your soul. Don't come back for me. Who do you think you are?
Thank you. Our thanks to Christina. Her latest album is called Head or Heart. Be sure to check it out. We'll be right back. It's fabulous.